Hello, hello. Welcome to yet another episode of Behind the Quota. This episode was actually supposed to be a continuation from last episode. We were actually supposed to merge both episodes together, but we figured they're somewhat separate topics within the same overarching topic. So we said, let's just make it different episodes. So for you guys that perhaps haven't watched the previous episode, it was just talking about actually landing an interview with a target company of yours, how to go about choosing those target companies, how about do you go about breaking in to those companies and actually getting that opportunity, how to multi-thread with those organizations, and how to ace your screening call. So everything up to that point was what we spoke about last episode. But now today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is more related to how to spearhead what follows in terms of the other interview stages that come along, and perhaps even how to negotiate your offer in the end if you get provided an offer. We can talk about that too in the end. But
we'll also leave a link in the description for that episode regarding recruiting, so that if you guys are watching this first, you can, take a look at the first one and get an idea as to like the initial stages of recruiting.
Absolutely. Well, let's definitely get started then, Sherif. So where were we? We were talking about, all right, you just aced your screening call. You're booked on the calendar to talk to the hiring manager. That's the person you're going to report to if you end up joining the organization. What are you to expect? Is there anything you can prepare for before that call? Things like that, and how to set yourself up for the best success there.
In my opinion, I think that's like probably the most important interview of course, at this stage, it will be, but that's almost like where you're on the field. Like
100%.
That's where your real sales skills are going to have to come into play, because that's what you're going to be tested on. From my perspective, it was a call with the manager. I have a couple questions, like your regular complex interview questions, like tell me about a time where you failed and how did you overcome that, things like that. And then it ended with a mock cold call.
Okay. That same call, like that you had the mock cold call on the very first interview after the screening call.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, because usually other organizations, what they would do is the first call with the hiring manager is just like a coffee chat of some sorts where you guys are just getting to know each other. And then that way, if the hiring manager sees potential in you as a candidate, that's when either maybe this is looking at it from an AE perspective. I'm not too familiar with the SDR, I guess, interview process, but with the AE process, after the hiring manager, you maybe talk to somebody else higher up in leadership, like a VP or a director level. Then you do your mock presentation, and then you get presented with the offer. But I'm not sure, is it the same?
Yeah, no, in BDR, it's a little bit different.
It was just different for your organization you were?
No, I would say it was pretty much the same across all the organizations.
Even the very first organization you interviewed with?
Yeah.
They did the mock call on that first interview?
The first one with the sales manager, yeah. That was just the way it was. And then the third interview after that was with that same manager, and then a VP of sales, like a head of sales, something like that.
Like a panel interview kind of thing.
Yeah. And to me, it was a presentation in the second one.
Oh, really? You guys had to present right off the back too?
I had to present a case, yeah.
Oh, wow. Because you guys don't really do that on a day-to-day kind of responsibilities as an SDR or a BDR.
You don't, but in my perspective, they kind of told me, okay, here, take this account. And it was Air Canada, actually. And they were like, okay, how would you prospect this? Show me the steps that you would take in order to try to get this person for a meeting. And how will you find the appropriate person to reach out to? Mm-hmm. What's the persona? That sort of thing. And
okay, I see. So you had to present your case on how you're going to go about prospecting into that account rather than presenting the value proposition of the organization.
Yeah. Okay. It was, how are you going to book? Who are you going to book? How are you going to book them?
Around, so it was like more about strategy around booking that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
What was it like for you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I've never really interviewed for an SDR role in the North American market or like within the SaaS sphere. But as an account executive, and I agree with you, the second stage with the hiring manager is arguably the most important one, because this is where you're either going to build a champion internally or not. And inevitably, the decision does come down to the actual hiring manager to decide whether he wants you on the team or not. But there's a lot of other individuals within that process that can veto that decision. So for example, the hiring manager might be raving about you, and then the VP steps in and says, no, I don't really see him as a fit culturally or technically or whatever it is. But that's why you want to foster a champion. That way he can push back and like, no, you didn't ask him the right questions to figure that out. Or actually, I had a deeper conversation around that specific topic you're hesitant about, and he managed to tell me this and that. So you want to make sure you can foster that relationship with the hiring manager early on, because again, that's who you're going to be reporting to.
Okay, in the previous episode, you talked to us about how you want to cold call them beforehand and be like, hey, I want to put a voice to the name so that you know who you're interviewing next. What has been your experience like once you actually meet them, and what are their like first impressions of you, if they have any?
Yeah, so for you guys that don't have that context from the previous episode, I recommend after applying, or perhaps after getting referred in, to give a call to the hiring manager, regardless of the way that you've applied, and say something along the lines like, hey, this is a cold call. I'm calling you just merely for an introduction, and put a voice behind the name. I've just applied to this role on your team. And if you were referred, you can just leave it at that. Like, I just applied, excited for the conversation. Maybe you can sneak in a question or two there, but then that's it. Or perhaps what you can do is, if you weren't referred, say, would love to get the opportunity to at least have a chat. I'm very enthusiastic about this opportunity and would love for you to take my name out of that pile, or my resume out of that pile, and schedule me for an interview. So depending on which side of the coin you went with, what I've found is when I go to meet that hiring manager, they're already on the lookout for me. They were looking forward to that interview because they've had that, really quick peek into who I am, just seeing a little bit of that hunger come through from that cold call. So then they're looking forward to it. And that's why you don't want to let them down. Because imagine somebody's coming excited to the call, and then you turn out to be just a, very monotone, weird guy who's just not saying anything, or
because he has high expectations of you at that point, and he's probably talked to you, to the rest of his team, because I sense that sometimes with my manager. He's like once he was looking at my screen, he was like, oh, did that guy just send you a LinkedIn request? Because he's also been spamming me with messages and things like that. So he is excited to talk to you because you're already doing the job before the job even starts. But okay, so what's your experience like when they meet you? So you're saying like they're enthusiastic, they're happy. From my experience, I wasn't doing that because like I was still like very early on in sales, and kind of the experience that I've had is I felt like now I'm trying really hard to impress this guy.
Yeah.
Or like, how am I going to go about making this guy like me? And how am I going to go about making this guy want to give me the job after this interview?
Yeah. I don't think you should go about it with that mindset. I think you should go about it that I'm literally having a coffee chat, and I may or may not hire the guy in front of me. So you're technically hiring him to manage you. So you want to take a look at that and evaluate that from that perspective. Yes, you might be excited and enthusiastic about this opportunity, but you just don't know if this opportunity is going to come through or not, because you're also evaluating it. And that's something that a lot of people, don't miss out on. A lot of people feel like the person they're interviewing with is above them, and they need to do everything within their power to impress them no matter what.
No, that's definitely one thing I would do differently, because there is no reason for me to put him up on this pedestal. I feel already when you put someone on a pedestal, you're losing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're not even on the same level. I'm talking up to him like he's some sort of god. That is something I would never, ever do again. Because like you said, I want to know if I'm going to be comfortable with this guy coaching me. I want to know if I'm going to be comfortable with this guy telling me what to do, because that is his job. And if, I'm inspired by him, I'm motivated by him. And having that, like you said, clear kind of coffee chat where you're both evaluating each other really puts you at the same level as him, and allows for you to like flourish more.
100%. And what I will say is, don't take that piece of advice I'm telling you and completely run with it in the wrong way, because you can misinterpret what I'm saying and completely be as if you're literally just interviewing the other guy, which is not the case, right? You don't want to come across as a little bit arrogant.
Yeah, no.
Because arrogance is always the diminishing returns to this thing that you're doing right now. So again, do be very respectful. You want to make sure that you're actually interviewing for the job, but still being analytical and critical about who is going to potentially be managing you. There's a sweet spot that you can get to where you're very appreciative of their time, very respectful, confident, but again, not arrogant. And a lot of people say, don't be arrogant, but they don't really truly know the definition of arrogance in that sense. Arrogance is like, oh, you should be happy to have some time to chat to me in the first place. Like
No, absolutely.
like a very God complex kind of thing. You don't want to have that. You want to be humble, down to earth. I really want to learn from you. I'm really excited. Tell me how you'll teach me. Tell me how you're going to improve me, right? So it's like, if you give a mediocre answer to how are you going to coach me, maybe I might not want to go with you anymore as a potential candidate for my next opportunity to be working at.
And for that interview, did you have already a couple stories prepared, or a short list of like 10 questions as to these are the questions that they're probably going to ask me and these are the stories that I want to tell them about? I know for me personally, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions set out. I'm like, those are again, I found it on Google. So like probably not the best way to go about it. ChatGPT most of my answers so I can sound smart and all that sort of shit. Which I probably wouldn't do again. But what was your preparation for that interview like?
Yeah, I wouldn't. You're right. I would not chat GPT anything. It's not, most companies are not going to be as intense as the AWS interviewing process with the whole STAR methodology of answering the questions. You need to have statistics in them. I mean, it'll help, right? But a lot of people, when they try to force the STAR methodology of answering questions, they ended up losing out of an authenticity and being genuine with their answers. It just seems robotic. It seems like very rehearsed. You have it noted down. And again, as a salesperson, you don't want to sound like that. So what I would recommend instead is have a mental note. What are your weaknesses? What are success stories? What are some deal stories? For example, if you're an account executive, a big one is going to be, tell me about a deal where it didn't end up going the way you wanted it to do and what you learned from that. Think of a closed lost opportunity and then why did it not go that way and what did you learn from it? It's not hard, right? It's just when you start wanting to sound like an Olympian level sales guy where you've experienced some weird, unique stories where you've learned the most, or you want to add that textbook essence to it. See, that's when you go wrong. That's when you fall off as a person in that other person's eyes in terms of, oh yeah, there we go again. Here's the other spiel from ChatGPT that I need to now act like I'm paying attention to the next 2 minutes. You don't want to be that guy. You want to have genuine experiences you can talk to. They're not expecting a perfect candidate to walk through that door. Hence why you're in that position that you're applying for. You're not,
because no one in the organization is perfect.
Nobody is ever perfect. And that's the thing. You want to come across as a human, not someone who is pretending to be like a immortal being that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. So you can't be an immortal being. So
I overcame the depths of hell to close this deal.
So if you come across as that immortal being, that's it. Like you lost your opportunity because like they're hiring a human, not an immortal being. Otherwise, that would have been in the job description. So don't do that.
Okay, so instead, perhaps have like let's say 5 stories. Those are the stories that I would
the good,
talk
the
about.
bad, the ugly, the nice, the success, whatever it is. You know your stories, right? I'm sure
Exactly.
You've told them to your friends and family or whatever. Say them. Of course, it's what they're looking for is your storytelling, how you look back at your mistakes and reflect on them, being very accountable to things. They're not really looking at the story itself. They're looking at traits that they can extract from that story. So you telling them a very impressive story that doesn't have any traits attached to it is not really the best answer to give them.
And how you're able to convey that story. Like there are so many good stories that you can tell, but if you're not able to convey it to that person in a way where they understand it and they are engaged, then you're probably gonna not sound as genuine and not sound as authentic. Whereas it's really important in that stage, I think, to just sound authentic, sound real. Say the stories that actually highlight the strength. Like, don't be afraid to say the stories that highlight the strengths of your personality and of your sales persona, so that you still want to appear good. You don't want to just like talk down on yourself and only talk about your mistakes, but at the same time not being so robotic where you don't even sound genuine. But okay, so for me, I told you what I did. It was just prepare a couple questions and a couple stories. What did you do for that role that you're in now?
At that point, I mean, the role I'm in right now, I actually kept like a whole pipeline tracker of all the opportunities I was interviewing at, the stage I was in. I really treated it like I was closing a deal, but the deal I was closing was myself. So, if you do have that kind of wired in your brain, you can use it as well for the whole interviewing process and breaking down your pipeline. But at that point, I had so many reps interviewing with other organizations that I've already done the prep before, that I just literally went into the interview. I was myself and I left the interview. I knew what a good question sounds like. I knew what good answers sounded like because I've done it so many times prior, to the point where I felt like I've mastered the interviewing portion of it. So it just kind of flew very naturally.
Did you practice with a friend, by the way? Were you practicing with other people, or you just like...
I just had so many reps, man. Like, because most of my friends weren't in what I do, and it just doesn't seem as helpful to me. Maybe that's just how I am. It just didn't. I'd rather practice with myself. Like I role played sometimes. For example, when we get to the presentation stage, I did role play with my self, act as if there's someone asking me questions and I'll answer them or ask them questions back, things like that. But I'll do have a couple tips for when we get to that point that I feel like are going to be very, very useful, especially if you've multi-threaded really well in that organization you're trying to break into. You can maybe grab somebody from there and say, hey, I'm sorry. I know your time is limited, but you have 20 minutes to spare for me to go over that presentation. Or maybe you can loop in the hiring manager himself and say, hey, let me practice with you. They love that. Those are some extra brownie points you can get, is if you reach out to anybody from the leadership team
and you tell them, hey, like, I want to practice with you.
I want to practice with you. They love that, by the way.
Have you done that before?
I've done that so many times, actually.
And you've gotten the opportunity to practice?
And I've gotten the opportunity to practice. If not, I've done sometimes where I've recorded a Loom video. Do you know what Loom is?
Yeah. I've had companies ask me for, hey, before you apply, make sure you do a Loom video to show us your
I hate that. I hate and I despise when companies ask things off of you before you've even spoken to anybody within an organization.
Why?
It's just like, it takes the human layer out of an interview. I'm interviewing you too. So why are you putting yourself into like a God complex where now it makes me feel like I'm applying to get into heaven or something? You know what I'm saying? So like, no, I want to actually properly talk to somebody, because maybe I don't want to put in the effort with you guys because you guys are not what I'm expecting. So I don't like doing any of that. But once you do get to the final stages, sending them a Loom video about your mock demo or mock cold call that you've recorded with a friend or whatever it is, and ask them for some feedback, it doesn't need to be good at all. Sure, it needs to be passable.
And what are you doing like that Loom video about, like, hey, I'm Hassan and a story about you? Or are you like doing a Loom video of like how an AE in that company would close a deal with a client?
Okay, so just to clarify, when I'm saying Loom video, I'm talking about where we got into the presentation stage and you've recorded yourself doing the whole pitch. And you send them your pitch of their own product and say, what feedback do you have for me? But yes, Loom videos can be very, very helpful, even on like early on in the process, like introductions before calls. Like if we were to take a step back, before you even get to the stage where you're talking to the hiring manager during the interview, if you sent him a Loom video on top of that cold call, it's like, maybe send him like a video saying, hey, Matt, this is Hassan speaking. I know I just called you earlier on as a cold call, whatever it is. I know most likely most of our time is going to be spent talking about processes and whatnot and sales strategy. So I want to take a moment a little bit to give you some flavor about who I am. I'm Hassan. I'm into X, Y, and Z. Those are my hobbies. That's who I am as a person. Just to give you some flavor about me. This video is going to put you like on another level. Nobody's doing that. If you start sending Loom videos to customers at that point of time, that's amazing outbound strategy you can start doing. Like you're leading with example, with action. So even if that video doesn't really have any value, it's just like a taste
This guy's
test.
going above and beyond.
Exactly.
This guy's not just doing what we're telling him to do, which
Exactly.
is like, I mean, if you want to be successful in sales, from my perspective so far, is that you have to go above and beyond in order to be like in that top 1%.
100%. You need to do what others are not doing to succeed.
Okay. Now going back to, I feel like we went on a bit of a tangent, but very, very important tangent. Have you ever, like, what's the weirdest question you've ever been asked? And any, like give me a little bit of insight as to like the harder questions.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll ask you questions that are just impossible to think of an answer off on the spot, just to see how you'd react to difficult questions. Maybe the answer isn't really the most important thing. It's just how you carry yourself when asking a very challenging question. So for example, my most recent job that I'm currently on, the role I'm in right now, my hiring manager actually asked me this question. He said, give me 3 reasons why I shouldn't hire you. And like you get hit with that question mid interview. I'm sorry, I'm giving your strategy away there, Matt, but
I'm ready to give some strategies away.
That was a difficult question. That really, like, it can, like, I was like falling on my horse. I was like, what the hell did he just ask? But what I answered was, you want to kind of give very emotionally intelligent answer. Sorry. So what I said was, I get too emotionally attached to deals and things working out the way I expected them to work out, to the point where that might clog my, I guess, like my critical thinking or my thought process behind properly doing things. So I told him that, and I told him, so I gave him the actual reason, but then from giving him the reason, what I then went ahead and did was, however, I've recently gone about doing X, Y, and Z to control that. So what I said was, in order to combat the emotional blur I get during deals, I started reminding myself and bringing myself to the present and thinking I can only control the controllables. And that allowed me to get more clarity working the deals. So you see how I've structured that
One
answer?
thing you're bad at and how you're actively working to improve it.
Exactly. Rather than say, oh yeah, sometimes I get lazy, sometimes I get complacent, sometimes I lack motivation, I need somebody to motivate me. Cool, like, sure, I'm definitely not hiring you there. But versus saying, oh, sometimes I get unmotivated to do things because there's not much happening. However, in situations like that, I try to do X, Y, and Z. Right? Again, that's where you get to be creative. And this is also where he gets to see if you're being genuine or not. A lot of people like to fluff it. Oh, I tend to take on more responsibilities than I can handle and burn out. It's like, are you serious, bro? Like, that's...
I'm so good at, I'm going to be so good. I'm going to outshine, and you probably don't want me on your team type answer.
Like, do not do that. Do not give them any bullshit around, oh, I tend to take on more than I can handle and burn out in the process. Like,
but there are some people like that. But the
people who are like that will not answer the question this exact same way
because they don't feel it.
They don't feel
they're
it.
Like, if they are a workhorse type of personality, they probably, I think they enjoy it. I mean, I feel like I am that sometimes. Sometimes I'll go above and beyond for things that I shouldn't go above and beyond in. But I'm not like gonna put it on my manager or the other person. It's just like, just my personality. Like, that's the way you are in the wrestling room. That's the way you are in jiu-jitsu room.
And if you're the kind of guy that does that, you're not going to call that a weakness, are you?
It's not a fucking weakness at all. Like, it's something I'm proud of.
It's like, okay, sure, you burn out, but then do something else later or take it easy for a couple of days, right?
Exactly.
So those are very fluffy answers. Do not give those answers during interviews. Like, that's what I'd say was one of my difficult ones. But I'm curious to learn about maybe what you've heard.
In the role that I got hired in, it was the manager. Again, shout out Harp, but not shout out that much, because he was like, you suck. He just said that. He was like, I don't like any of your answers. Why am I hiring you? But I learned later on that that's just his strategy with people that he's about to hire. Apparently he's done that with everyone that he's about to hire. Again, I feel like just to see what their reaction is going to be like. And I'm thinking to myself in the middle of that interview, what the fuck is this guy on about? Like,
What did you do wrong?
Yeah, I'm like, what did I do to offend you? But that's his strategy. His strategy was just to like try to berate me and see how am I going to react to that. I think I was like cool enough and confident enough to be like, all right, like, you know what? You don't like me. It's not the end of the world. I have a couple other companies that I'm interviewing with. I didn't tell him that on the interview, but that was the back of my mind. I feel because I had so many reps prior, that didn't faze me at all. And I was just cool and collected myself. But his strategy was strange, bro. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know why he was doing that. My guess is and I realized this.
He just wants to see if, I mean, I guess this is me assuming, but maybe he wants to see how you'd react to negative feedback. If you're going to be offended, or you're going to take that in a sense of like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help. Let me know what I can do, right?
Yeah, and because I later got to know him as a manager too, that's the way he is with like cold call practices. Like he makes it so hard.
He sets the bar really high.
He sets the bar really high so that when you go on a cold call, no matter what the prospect says to you, you're like, I've experienced worse with Harp.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was his strategy. It's a cool strategy. I felt like I was a bit too thankful for him at the end. I was like, oh, thank you for challenging me, all that bullshit, because he hired me like on the spot after it. Like he told me like, welcome to the company. We're excited to have you. I was just like playing around in this interview. That's my style. So it was nice, but yeah, that was the weirdest interview, and I ended up getting hired from it too. So
that's good. Yeah, I know. It's very interesting to see how different there's like in terms of leadership style. There's never going to be two managers that are similar.
Yeah,
there's going to be some resemblances, but it's very interesting to see everybody's leadership style. And I think we can definitely devote a whole session on, you know, the different leaders you've experienced and how they act and how they interact with you. I think that would be a very good episode we can definitely create in the future.
And that's why it's important to also, again, I'm circling back to the first point we made at the beginning of the podcast, which is you're also testing them. Because I personally don't mind that sort of leadership style that he had, where he's so hard on me that the prospect is gonna be easy. I don't mind that sort of leadership style. I like to have hard training. But if you're a person who that doesn't work for you, now you know. Now you know, like maybe he did tell you, all right, you're hired, then maybe you did well, but you need to go back and think to yourself, all right, like, do I want to work with that manager? Not because he's a good or bad person. It just, does his leadership style fit my personality?
Exactly. Yeah. Because sometimes some people might really take offense to certain things sales managers say to employees. Like a lot of them can be very harsh. A lot of them can be because if you're a brand new college graduate and nobody's ever spoken to you that way, and you enter the big bad world, and this guy is telling you suck right off the bat, you're going to get very like shaken up, like what the hell am I going into? And you might start hating your life, even though he's really just doing that for your own benefit.
Yeah.
The same way as you were as a kid growing up, and your parents used to add that tough love on you to make you a better person. Doesn't mean that they dislike you or hate you. They just want the best for you, because technically the best for you is the best for them, because you give them commission. That's
exactly.
So a lot of people misunderstand the different coaching styles and take it a little bit too personal, which is something you don't want to do. But again, if it's not your cup of tea, completely understand. For example, my manager right now is day and night difference from my previous manager. And not even in I wouldn't say they're both unique in their own way. They're both great in their own way. One of them was like the very tough love kind of manager where I hardly ever saw any praise from him. He would always like either shit on it completely or just be very monotone. And you'd know if he was monotone, then he's happy. So you never got that validation where it's like,
good job, or like a pat on the back.
Yeah. Like he might sneak one in every now and then, but he makes that so scarce that you're always like, as if it's like you're seeking his validation, everything you do. Right? Because it's like, oh, I just did this.
What works best for you? I'm curious to know this. What do you think is the leadership style that you enjoy most and you excel in most?
I think a good balance between tough love and collaboration is perfect. Like if I was to merge both my current manager style and my previous manager style into one. And maybe because that's like my top two favorite styles. Like my current manager is the kind of manager that, you know, those diagrams you see, and I'll probably pop it up on the podcast, but where you have somebody pulling the sled alongside his subordinates rather than sitting in the back and letting them push the sled. My manager is very much like he's pulling the sled with us. Like he's always in the front lines. He's joined any meetings you request of him. He'll do the internal digging he needs to help you out, to alleviate some of the administrative work. He'll do some of your own administrative work to free up some time for you to take more meetings and calls. Like he's really collaborating with you in every sense possible. I like that style because that shows that that manager cares about your success. He's willing to take some things off of your plate to make your life easier, regardless of whether you're, you know, excelling or not. I like that. So if I was to merge that with a little bit more tough love, where it's like you don't get as much validation as you wish for, which keeps you pushing. Again, that's my kind of personality, right? Because if I'm always getting praised, then it turns to me working for my success, to me working for quick dopamine from the praises I keep getting. So it's a weird one, but I feel like a hybrid of that works best for me. But what about you?
I don't like tough love.
You don't know?
I don't like it. The reason I don't like it is because I'm already so hard on myself.
Okay.
Like I'm someone who like puts a lot of pressure on myself to like to try to be as successful as I can. And I don't need that other person in my ear swearing at me, or not swearing at me.
But they do swear, by the way.
They do swear, not at you, but like, or at you.
No, they do. Trust me, you're gonna see all sorts of different type of people. Like I've had managers that they like, are you an absolute idiot? You're a fucking sandwich. Like shit.
You
like
see,
that.
I wouldn't like that. I don't like that, because to me, respect is very important. That's just the kind of household I came from. Like respect the other person
I get
and
it.
expect respect back. And like I told you, I'm hard on myself. Like I'm the type of person that will like, if I had like a bad day or something, it will eat me up inside, and I'll go back home and think about it. How can I improve? So I don't need an extra person
to do that,
to be telling me, oh, you're shit too. Like I'm already feeling like shit.
But I think it's just because you haven't developed the crocodile scales that you will develop being long enough in this career. You're going to realize like there's some fucking cutthroat people out there that, whether that's colleagues, like just people that you're peers with, or perhaps even leadership, you're going to run into a lot of these different personalities. And I'll tell you what, you're going to come to appreciate the tough love, because sure, you might be tough on yourself, but having somebody there that is keeping you accountable is also helpful as a way to lean on that too. Like it's like you feel a little bit cornered to the point where you feel like you're just gonna fucking smash what's in front of you and keep going at it, versus having some out. I don't like having an out.
I don't like having an out either, and I don't like extra praise, because I'm also like, my ego will rise with it, you know?
Yeah,
when
like
you're you're so good, or like you're booking so many meetings for me, like I love you. I don't also like that either. I like collaboration. I liked what you were talking about, where I can sit down with that one person, and maybe because I'm still early on in my career in comparison to you, where he's like teaching me stuff, or like I'm ready to like be educated. How do I do this, boss? Or tell me what are the best tactics. Tell me what you think would work for me, and give me the freedom also. That's something very important to me, to give me the freedom to be my own salesperson, not just like do this, do that because I've seen it work with X, Y, and Z. No, like those are the best practices, Sherif. This is what I think would work for you, but go out there and figure it out yourself and come back and give me feedback, because I'm very big on like getting feedback and knowing, like getting a different person's perspective. And when I can collaborate, like the reason I'm enjoying my job so much right now is largely due to the fact that I'm enjoying working with my manager. He teaches me a lot, and he gives me the opportunity to like have a meeting with him whenever I want. He's like, whenever you see empty space in my calendar, you want to learn something new, just put in a meeting, and I'm going to be there and I'm going to teach it to you. And I like that aspect where, you know, he's more of a sports coach, let's say. And
that's what I like. I love sports coaches. I was going to touch on that. Like, I like the Coach K style of coaching, but I want a little bit of, I guess, the motherly love kind of style too, right? Like a hybrid of that, I'd say. But I think we've gone on a little bit of a tangent there from the actual interview process. I guess there's going to be a whole episode dedicated to the whole management style and who we like to work with and the different styles we've experienced so far.
Do you want to move on to maybe the cold calls and I don't know what it's like for AEs.
We can definitely talk about that. So let's assume you've done the call. Actually, one more thing I wanted to discuss and is towards the end of the call, they're going to open up for questions. It's very, very important you ask the right questions that are, again, not textbook questions. So not those questions like, oh, talk to me about what you have planned in the next 3 years about blah, blah. It's like, cool. These are cool questions, but you got to understand who you're asking those questions to. Asking a question in regards to the company's trajectory 3 years down the line from a bird's eye view to a hiring manager is not the right question to ask. You can ask that to the VP or the head of sales if you get an interview with them, sure. But you want to ask more about culture. You want to ask about coaching style. You want to ask about expectations. Talk to me about my peers. Talk to me about the culture you've fostered on your team, not the organization, but your team itself. Things like that are much more humane questions that are really thoughtful, even though they're concise, even though they're not like 3 sentences long questions talking about details. Don't be that weirdo who asks weird questions like, oh, I saw that you do fishing on Facebook. Like, I don't know if so many people do that, but like, just don't do that. Don't ask stalkerish questions, even though if you're trying to show you've done research. Maybe ask them like, hey, I saw that you did a career switch. You were doing this, now you're doing that. Wanted to learn a little bit more about you, right? How come you've done that? Ask them questions and then tell them, the reason I ask is I'm curious to know more about you. Or the reason I ask, I'm curious to know about how the team structure looks like. Things like that.
And it's out of curiosity and wanting to know that other person more than it is about impressing.
Yeah,
that's the one shift that I'm gonna like make whenever I apply to jobs from now on is prior to entering sales, my perspective was I want to ask the smart questions to impress the employer. Now it's like I want to ask those questions because I'm curious about that person's personality. I'm going to be spending the majority of my work hours with him. So I want to know why he is the way he is, what his story is. So be curious. Don't be the cool type or the research nerdy type.
Yeah, don't be the research nerdy type. That's going to hurt you much more than it will help you in the long run in that whole interview process, because it's just going to be like, oh, do we really want to hire a smartass? Like, that's just going to be, trying to impress us by doing a deep dive into our backgrounds. It's just cool. It's nice if you drop it casually in conversation, like, not that you're asking about it, but hey, I noticed you're into basketball. Curious, what team do you support, right? Very casual. I've done my research, but I'm still curious to know because I'm also into basketball, that kind of thing. That's fine.
And then there are the other questions, which are the important ones where you want to actually be curious about his team. Again, his leadership style, culture, all that. This is the part where you're interviewing him. Like where we keep circling back that the interview is a 2-way process. My mindset beforehand was it's always a one-way process where he's examining me. No, this is your opportunity now to examine him. And I don't know about you, but I feel like with sales managers, they also want that. Like you are going to sound as way more of a serious candidate. Absolutely. When you're trying to examine him.
And you're going to be that hot commodity that he may or may not be able to get. And whatever everybody seeks what they cannot have or what they perceive that they might not be able to have. So when you position yourself in that way, when you frame the conversation like that, subconsciously you're giving up that kind of energy. And that's really what you want to do to further your chances of succeeding and getting that job.
Okay. Do you now want to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk about the next stage. Usually what follows a hiring manager interview stage or call is going to be the call with either the panel interview, or maybe his leader is also going to be on the call, or head of sales, or someone else, or maybe it's going to either be just you with another leader. For example, with my current company, they might want to have you speak with someone else on a one-to-one basis before they give you the panel interview. So it depends on that. Again, what I like to do is keep it a sort of cadence. Whenever you're speaking to someone new, send them an introduction email, or call them to introduce yourself, or send them that Loom video about yourself. Hey, I know we're probably going to spend a lot of the time talking about work-related stuff. So I wanted
You always did that?
Yeah. I wanted to send you a Loom video talking a little bit about who I am as a person. That way you can add some flavor to who I am, right? So every single time, no matter what stage of the interview, you're talking to someone new, you send them that video. It's only going to help you. It's never going to take away from things. Unless you say something that will sabotage you on that video, like, oh, yeah, I dislike your favorite football team or something like that. I don't know why you don't want to even mention stuff like that. But again, so that's what I would do. What I also did between stages, like between interview stages, is I have a document that I named Hassan's Sales Strategy and Philosophy. And it's like a booklet with an index page with page numbers and everything. And it walks them through my entire deal process and sales strategy, from outbound motion to actually how I'm going to run the meeting, the kind of discovery I run, how I would process that. So basically, I'm giving them my strategy, saying, hey, if you're curious, you have a moment, feel free to skim through it.
And what have managers been impression of that?
So they love it for many reasons, because now they can cut to the chase. They don't need to ask the surface level questions that they would have asked now that they've read your sales strategy. So it might really help you if you can't articulate certain things in person and you'd rather just have it in writing. Again, don't send them like a ChatGPT document with so much text and everything is hyphened with the dash that ChatGPT sends you and expect them to read it. No. Very concise, bullet points.
Do you feel like they actually read it?
Even if they read a single page of it, that's enough. You've already set yourself apart. Again, a lot of what we're doing is theater to show them, hey, I'm different. It's a pattern disrupt. I'm sending you a Loom video. I'm sending you a booklet of my sales strategy. I'm cold calling you. I'm doing all these things that others are not doing. Not because it's required for the role. Matter of fact, in my current position, we don't do any prospecting. We got a lot of inbound leads that we work. So I don't ever have to pick up the phone and cold call anybody anymore. So it's not like it's part of the description. It's just pattern disruptions that you're constantly layering on top that is constantly reminding them of yourself.
What have managers usually said about that? Has it ever come into
they always praise
discussion in the interview?
They praise it. They say, I already see that you have very deep knowledge on outbound prospecting. So I was going to talk about that, but we can cut through that, things like that, where it's really just been more helpful than anything. It's never going to bite you in the ass. It's never going to be a setback for you.
What about people that don't have like even that sales experience? Either they're breaking into sales right now or they just graduated, so they don't have that experience of having worked a sales job before.
Yeah. So
do you recommend using a document like that too?
What I would do in that document, let's say if you're an SDR, you're breaking into your first role, having some sort of maybe 2-3 page document stating, I've done my research. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts on cold calling and prospecting and stuff. And here's some of my findings. And here's some of the things that I'm excited to put into action if I get an opportunity to work alongside you. It doesn't need to be from my experience. This is what I'm doing. It can be from my research. This is what I'll plan to do for you guys. So it's just more of like that. So just send them something. Send them something. Again, that's a pattern disrupt. It can be anything. Others are not sending anything. Others are just waiting for their time to get in the call and they'll have that conversation. So that's what I do. But jumping in, let's say third stage is with another leader. But then maybe it's someone higher up. So again, when it's someone higher up, let's say your next interview is with the head of sales or VP of sales. That's when you can start asking those questions that are bird's eye view. You you can ask him a question that's like, give me a example where you guys have hit a obstacle or some sort of setback in the whole sales motion. And from an executive level, how did you go about fixing that?
Can we take a step back a second? So I feel like we jumped into like what questions we're going to ask them. Let's talk a bit more about what questions they're going to ask us in that third stage interview.
Yeah, sure. That's true. We did hit a quick gap there. But the reason why I did that is most of the time, those sales leaders, they care to see more about like, it's more of, is there anything that I can say is a red flag about you? They're looking for red flags only. They're not looking for green flags. Ultimately, that's not their decision. They can only veto it. They can't say, yes, you're hired.
And from my experience, these sales managers have always, like the head of sales or the VPs, they've been way more chill than the actual sales managers. They're the most like, I don't know. I've had the experience where in 2 or 3 interviews where they were there and they're the nicest.
They don't really care, right? They're very nice. They're spread very thinly, or they just don't care to be on that meeting or call, to be honest with you. They'd rather go do some other forecasting or whatever they want to do. They don't really care about this call unless it's like a very small team startup kind of thing. But most of the time, they just want to say that they finished the interview. They've either identified a red flag or not. And that's it, because the decision will always be the hiring manager's decision with the blessings of the other leaders. It'll never be their decision with the blessing of the hiring manager. Yeah. So that's why I skipped straight to the questions part, because most of the time tell me about yourself. Cool. Why are you leaving? Cool. Run me through a deal you've done. Things like that, right? Very, very surface level questions. They're not going to be digging as deep as the hiring manager would. That's why you can set yourself apart, again, with pattern disrupts here towards the end of the interview, asking him very challenging questions that can show some intellect as well. This is where you can chat GPT some questions. But again, not like to that level where it's textbook level, but it can be things like, all right, give me a challenge that you guys face from a sales motion perspective. And what was that challenge, if you don't mind me asking, and what did you do to get there?
And one that comes to mind is like, where do you guys see yourself growing? Like, what is the objective of this company at this point in time? Are you guys trying to like get more market share, just survive, grow a sales team? How often are you gonna be hiring new people? Like, those are all important questions that just from us having this conversation that I think about, that I obviously hadn't done before because I wasn't aware of all these things. But it's for people that might perhaps get a bit more stressed or a bit more uptight that now, I'm interviewing with the VP of sales. Like, this is such a big deal. I think they're the chillest. It's like one of the more chill conversations that you're going to have in the entire sales process. And it's also, I feel like they're easier to impress kind of. If you come a bit more prepared, you are going to stand out in front of other people to them, because like you said, they don't really give a shit about being in this meeting, to be honest.
Because the thing is, if you're joining from a low-level perspective, like an SDR, BDR, even SMB account executive, you're not really going to be collaborating with them as much. So to them, they don't really care. As long as there's no red flags, they don't really care about whether you get hired or not. They care about whether you're going to be an absolute failure or not. Sure, they might catch on some red flags, but other than that, they're not going to pose a threat to you. And that's where you, as yourself, sure, you're going to be evaluating their executive leadership style, but you're also going to take a step back from an evaluation perspective, because you're not really interacting with this person as much. Sure, you might get to a point where you get promoted enough to report to them, but at the same time, that's still a long time ahead. You might not want to look too deep into that. So you're also taking a step back from an evaluation perspective. So you don't need to be as fierce or aggressive in that interview as you perhaps should in other stages.
It's your stage to get a bit of an overview of what the company goals are and what the vision is, and see if that matches your vision as well.
Exactly. And that's what I would say that stage is. Very fast process. You get to the questions, ask the questions part. Again, ask them those bird's eye view questions, and you're good to go. Hopefully.
Does it end now?
It ends now. That's it. That's like
You're not emailing afterwards because like you're crazy on the
Of course, yes.
stuff.
You want to always send thank you emails after every single interview, like process, even with the initial screening call, right? These are basic things before the call. Set the stage, intro call, like intro videos, whatever it is. After, thank you emails, even thank you looms if you want to take it to that level too. It's up to you. And then next stage usually is going to be the panel presentation, where either as an SDR, you're going to do the mock cold call or the mock presentation about how you're going to break into an account, or B, you're going to actually present their actual product. They're going to give you a slide deck with material to present and perhaps some resources. They're going to equip you with everything you need to actually properly do the presentation. They just want to see how you execute on it. So we can start with the SDR presentation stage, and then I can talk more about the account executive one, but I haven't really interviewed for an SDR role in a long time, so I'll let you kind of walk through how that looks like.
For me, from experience, it was bad. It sucked because I hadn't cold called before.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the small cold call. I didn't really understand at the time what a cold call, what entails and what goes into having a good cold call, because I haven't been on the job yet. And there's so many things that I would do differently if I were to go back. But usually they'll give you like two options. Oh, do you want to do a mock cold call about the actual product or service that we're selling? Or they usually give you the freedom to choose anything else. And I've done both. I didn't prepare well enough, I don't think, for like objections and objection handling and like the pitch and stuff. I had ChatGPT'd something and went in preparing to read off that ChatGPT note that I got. So that was my experience. The things I would do differently is, well, now I just have a lot more practice doing cold calls. So I feel like I'm smooth with it. I can be myself a lot more on the call. And if I would to give like tips or something for people to keep in mind when they're doing these mock cold calls, is do as much research as you can, I think, on what entails a good cold call to be, just so you're prepared. They're not going to be extremely difficult with you. Like, yeah, I had one manager who was like really, really an asshole. And it's that same manager who was hard, but that's just his leadership style. Most of the time, from my experience, it's been easy objection handles like, send me more info, or send me an email, or I don't have time right now, I'm going into a meeting. So just prepare for those. I'd say practice with a friend. Even if they're not in sales, just tell them, hey, can you just act like a prospect? I'm going to mock cold call you. And if you get in enough reps, you're good. I think to me, it's all about reps for the mock cold call. And if you can do your research, watch as many videos. Don't listen to like, what's his name, Mazzarelli. Like that is not good advice. Like, watch real people on YouTube that are in the role.
I mean, with Mazzarelli, it's a different industry. It's a different niche. Like, what he does is he does B2C versus we do B2B. So there's like a different kind of way of doing it. So I would say it depends on the style. But yeah, you're right. They're looking for a different kind of cold call than the ones you probably, watch that are going viral. They're not expecting much, especially if that's the entry level job you're getting out of school. They're just looking for you not to completely be a failure again in that cold call. Have some sort of skeleton to your call that they can add more muscle mass to by training and coaching you. That's really what they're looking for. So,
and reps. Just practice. If you practice for example, like 2 days before your interview with a person, let's say like, I don't know, 30 to 50 times, get your script ready so that it just, when you're on the interview, it just comes out naturally. That's the best way to go about it. That's how I would do it if I'm applying to jobs. That is the exact strategy I would take.
Yeah, I'm actually excited for our cold call episode where we're going to talk about cold calls. I think there's a lot to speak on in that case. But
that's my experience. That's my experience from a BDR role. Do you have anything you'd want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add, particularly around cold calls. I think it's just a lot of people get spooked by that point. But really, if you've done everything right before that, leading up to that, it's not going to be a deal breaker. You can do not the like the bestest of jobs there. Not the best job, but you can still get the job.
Yeah, like I don't think I did that well of a job in the mock cold call and for the interview that I'm for the company that I'm working for right now. But it wasn't, again, like you said, it wasn't a deal breaker. Just don't shit the bag, like don't like do terrible, and you're chilling. Now I'm curious to know, what is it like at the AE stage?
Yeah. So at some point during the interview process, you're going to have a panel presentation where you're going to be talking to a bunch of leaders and presenting to them your exact pitch that they've assigned to you. So whether that's the pitch that they've given you like the slide deck for, and they're telling you, all right, we want you to pitch our own product. Or maybe on the flip side, again, similar to how the SDRs do it with the cold calls, they might ask you, all right, bring a product or service that you're going to pitch us, and we're going to do that. I think it's much better if you do their own product, because it's like two birds, one stone. You're familiarizing yourself with their product. You're also getting some reps in, and you're getting their feedback. They can give you their advice beforehand. Again, leading up to those presentation stages, always either send them a Loom video with you practicing that presentation, or set some time on their calendar to meet with you to role play. Very important.
You've done that before?
I've done that before multiple times.
With the same manager that is doing the interview with you?
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
Because they love to see how you react to feedback. Because to them, again, all of this stuff can be trained, right? They can train you how to do this. You can get the reps in and do good at it. They just want to see how you react to, feedback.
Your attitude
towards it. Are you, too arrogant and you're going to keep your own ways regardless of the feedback you get? Again, coachability. So they're very open to listening to you do the presentation with them. Once you've done the presentation with them, got some feedback, tweaked the presentation, you can go back and present it to them. Again, they're not looking for a perfect presentation from you. They're looking for the certain pillars that are there. Rapport, agenda, discovery, pitch, and then either a demo or straight into closing next steps.
How long is that interview usually?
Usually it's 45 to an hour. You do a presentation for 30 minutes and then 15 minutes of feedback or 30 minutes of feedback, depending on, I guess, how much time you took. They're also looking for time management. Are you the kind that's going to ramble on and do a whole monologue and not actually involve them in the conversation? Is it going to be a collaborative conversation? They're not really looking at your, how do I say this? They're not looking at that specific, what you're saying in terms of the actual information you're presenting. They're looking at those pillars more than anything. That's one presentation style. I like that the most. I think that's the most SaaS friendly, and I appreciate when organizations do that kind of style of presentation. I've had other organizations where they present you with a case study and ask you, how are you going to present the value proposition to this account? So I've had an organization where they tell me, based on your previous book of business that you've had, come back to me and present me a case study on why you think this organization has a need for our solution and how we can go ahead and help them.
So it's more of a test of strategy than it is a test of your ability to hold a meeting.
It's a test of strategy. It's a test of understanding their product, because if you understand their product, then you can perhaps loop it to one of those other accounts you've worked with and how you'd sell that to them. Things like that. Honestly, I don't like that style as much. I feel like it's too demanding. There's so much preparation that is needed into that.
I had one interview that was that exact thing, but instead it ended with a cold call and ended with a mock cold call. But they basically gave me an account of like Air Canada. How would you break into this, choose the right people and stuff. And one thing that was weird is like, okay, I went in and I did my research and I was like, this company had this issue in 2024, and I bought in a bunch of articles, and they were like so blown away that I did that research. They were like, what the hell? But
just use ChatGPT deep research.
Yeah, no, that's that's almost what I did. But they were like, oh, maybe you spent way too much time doing that research. I was like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to prepare well for this or not? They were like impressed to the point where like, at the SDR role, you shouldn't really be doing that much research into an account. You probably spend too much time. But I don't know. I don't know what they were on about, to be honest.
Yeah, but at the organization I was doing that same style of, not only was it how are you going to break into this account, but how when you break into this account, who do you want to speak to? What is your pitch is going to be for each of those different personas? What are you going to tell them? What actual ROI metrics are you going to present to them? Things like that were like I was generally getting a headache figuring all this out, because it's at this point, just hire me. What the hell is this? It's too much work to be asked of from someone who hasn't joined the organization, and they can very easily take all your work that you've done and research and then just go back and do that, because they're not providing you the account. They're telling you, go get me an account that you've sold to in the past and do this research for and build that case study. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can do that, but that's free game to you guys. So you guys are not leaving this interview process empty-handed. You're going to go back and perhaps try to break into the account that I just gave you, which is cool. Sure.
And are they usually being hard asses in this interview? Like, for example, with me with the mock code calls, some are just like easy objections and some give really hard objections.
There was no objections because I'm not presenting this case study. Oh, well, there was objections, but I was not presenting this case study. Like, we're not role playing. I'm being myself and I'm presenting this case study to the sales manager, another sales manager of another team, and then the sales engineer manager. So like a technical guy and then two sales managers, and I'm presenting this to them. And they would poke holes in your thing during and after, and they're going to see how you react to those holes that they've poked. What I learned from that, and this was actually one of my biggest failures I've ever done on that stage, and I learned a very good lesson, is when people try to poke those holes or ask you very challenging questions that you don't know the answer of, they're expecting you to say, I don't know. Rather than waffle an answer or ramble about something that you perhaps don't know and get some things wrong.
I remember you talking to me about this.
Oh, that was a top 10 biggest, like,
bro, you were pissed for days.
I was mad. I'm disappointed. I was so livid because the reason they said that you cannot, like, we don't want to offer you the job. There's multiple reasons, but one of them were that because when we asked you questions, hard questions, we were expecting I don't know, or I'll get back to you, or follow up with an answer to that. You persevered through and tried to think of an answer on the spot when we don't want you to do that.
Can I play devil's advocate though?
Yeah.
I feel like they're low key kind of right. Like,
they're right. No, they're right. You should say, I don't know, and go back. And I would usually do that with a customer. But I'm on a case study that they're asking me about, and I don't want to seem like I haven't done the proper research or done the proper job. So I'll give them a logical answer to their question that might not be accurate. But I've told them I'll get back to you later. But here's my preliminary answer. I'll confirm it and follow up back to you later. They don't want me to even say that. They want me to say, I don't know. Right? But I learned that lesson. Sure, that is a lesson learned. I'm not going to fault that. They definitely have more experience than I do. I'm not going to be stuck up and say, they're wrong, I'm right. But what was the worst reason for them to reject me for that position was because they said that you were too aggressive with your multi-threading and follow-ups, that it turned us off.
Like you're multi-threading with their like employees in their current company?
Yeah. I literally called so many people in that company. I've multi-threaded as if I was breaking into an enterprise account. Spoke to people in different departments because I really wanted that opportunity. Like I was try-harding for that opportunity. So I multi-threaded with the sales engineers, the account executives in like in other segments, in other sales managers. I used my own network of people that I had and asked them, did you know anybody that you can introduce me to in that organization? Can you please set up a coffee chat for us? I had those coffee chats with those individuals. Like my name was echoing from all the different walls internally because everybody's like, oh, have you spoke to Hassan? Have you spoke to Hassan? Right? To the point where the guy was like, the sales manager was like, yeah, you guys, you're like a dog with a bone. I mean, I get what he meant by it, but it's like, you know, But so
Did they tell you afterwards, like after that final
they
interview?
said that was too much. They said you shouldn't have done that. They said that's too much. That's too aggressive. You turned us off. Which and I've told this to so many different sales professionals, sales leaders, other reps. I was like, was that too much? Like,
yeah, if you are a sales manager, what do you think of that?
yeah,
Like,
what do
comment
you
down
think?
below.
Like, is that too? Like, again, it wasn't even done in a manner that was too pushy or too salesy or sleazy or anything. Like, it was genuine conversations I was having with people. And this is really where I thought to myself, don't outshine your master kind of situation. Might have been, that's the case there where they're like, damn, like this guy hasn't even gotten the job yet. And he's
But even still, like that, why would you still reject that? Like, even if you are outshining
I
the
think
master.
what they thought is I was doing so much to the point where there might have been a catch to that. Like, what's the catch? Why is he so or like might have came across as why is he so desperate for this job?
Is he in debt?
Like, is there something that we don't know about this guy? I feel like that's that level of how much I was trying to break into that account or that job. I multi-threaded like an absolute madman to the point where like, hold on a second, like, is there something he's trying to compensate for by doing that? And I think that's truly why they did that. But those are the only two rejections. They said, because you wouldn't say I don't know to questions. And two, because you were just too aggressive. It put like you multi-threaded way too far.
But those are extreme cases. You wouldn't say that would happen.
That would not happen. That would not like that's only ever helped me, not harm me, except in this instance.
And I'm sure like even you're probably thankful for that now, especially that you're happy with the company.
And I'm so happy because I genuinely feel like I dodged a bullet by joining that. If I had joined that organization, because the job I'm earning right now, just from a financial perspective, I'm currently making triple what I've made then, OTE. So thank God that I did not get accepted into that organization.
So yeah, like getting rejected, like you are bound to get rejected.
Yeah, you are. You absolutely are. Like I've gotten rejected. Other, like the best of the best has gotten rejected. Hey, Michael Jordan got rejected from his basketball team in high school. So, but yeah.
Okay, I feel like we've covered so much.
We have covered.
We've covered so much from just the second round interview, third round interview, what to do between each stage, what to
presentations. I mean, there's one last thing that I'd want to talk about, but again, I feel like if we don't want to value dump on you all in one episode, but the offer stage. I'm not sure if that's something you want to talk about or not.
No, we can definitely squeeze it in.
Yeah,
because it's like it's part of the whole experience of going from second round interview all the way to landing the job or not landing the job.
Yeah. I would say when you get the offer, you're obviously gonna get. There's gonna be a period. There's different situations. Sometimes either you're one of the first candidates, applicants, and so you're gonna be waiting for a long time to hear back because they have to do all other applicants as stages before they make a decision. That's probably like the scariest point to be in. One of the scariest points to be in. Time kills deals, but being first sometimes gets you forgotten. Sometimes, right? If you're first and you set the bar so high, nobody's met it, cool, that's perfect. That's one way it can go. But if you're the first to do it and they're not completely blown away from you, they're still hearing others, maybe it's taking them 3 weeks to finish their other interviews, they're going to start forgetting about you. Yeah. And that's where those follow-ups are going to be very necessary. Maybe even set up like a call with the manager, like, hey, a call between calls kind of thing, or like, haven't heard from you in a while. Make a joke about not wanting to be forgotten. Can we set up a quick 5-minute chat? Things like that. Again, more pattern disrupts that you can weave in until they come with a decision. But that's important. If you're first and you're waiting a while to hear back, do weave in those pattern disrupts. If you're in the middle ground and like you're in the weave of everything else, cool. Like you're waited just a week. That's fine. I'd say that's the average waiting time.
Do you feel like you can be too desperate in that stage when you're if you're emailing that HR person or the person you had the screen call with, or is it fine to like,
no, I mean,
hey, I want to know
reasonable.
What's going on?
It's reasonable. Like I've interviewed with you guys 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything back from you. Like, what's up? Like I have those other opportunities I'm currently interviewing with.
You play that card always, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, you should be interviewing with others, right? So it's like, hey, I have to give others my decision too. I want to make sure that I wait till all my offers are here to review them before giving it that. And I haven't heard anything back. Things like that. So if you're really a good candidate, you can actually utilize and leverage that aspect to make them rush into the decision. You low-key want to close them because time kills deals. And the longer it takes, sometimes from a procedural level, they need to have at least a couple more candidates to, compare. But again, you want to pressure them a little bit. Again, softly. Don't. I'm always the aggressive style, but don't be too aggressive. Like you got to tone it down a little bit more because then they're just going to be very turned off and put off on you.
Because you can be excellent, but like you're not the only excellent salesperson in the world.
Exactly. Like a lot of people think it's just the actual interview that decides what it is, but it's all the factors.
The whole process.
Their experience. Like think of them as a customer. You're selling them a product or service, which is yourself. Look at it from a customer experience, a CX kind of experience viewpoint. How have I gotten this person through this stage to that stage? And what's their what's their experience been like so far?
Have you ever like negotiated salaries and stuff like that?
Of course, you want to definitely negotiate salaries. I think this is probably my weakness, especially if I'm interviewing with a good opportunity that I'm really excited for. I'm usually the kind of guy that's like, oh, where do I sign? Which is, I probably can't speak to this as much as I'd like to, just because I need coaching on this. I need someone to come back and tell me, no, you have to be strict. You have to anchor high, try to, negotiate your way. But it's depending on the opportunity. I'd say at least if the fixed, and this is something I've learned recently, if the salary itself is a fixed amount and they've declared that for you, like, hey, we can't negotiate that. That's set. What you can negotiate is the sign-on bonus or the amount of equity you can get. So maybe negotiate those. You can lean on those. Sign-on bonus always, because it's not a expense that is reoccurring. It's just a one and done kind of thing. So they might be willing to give you a sign-on bonus, especially if you can maybe paint the picture on, oh, I need to relocate, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. Like make it hard for like, yes, I'm going to accept and I'm going to work with you guys, but there's a lot of things that are going to be difficult. Can you make those difficulties a little bit easier with a compensation? Like I need to rent a U-Haul truck and do this and do that. Can you guys help me out?
Which are all fair things to like ask for.
Exactly. So, and even if they're not true, you can
play the game.
Play the game. Why not? Right? I never played the game.
Yeah, I haven't played the game either, so I can't really give much advice here.
That's probably where we need somebody else's advice.
Comment, please. Yes, if you're a sales manager, tell us.
Let us know how we should best negotiate our agreements in the end.
Because we're also trying to learn. Like we
so
said,
like this again, like we always say, this podcast is our journey, our perspectives, rather than what should and should not be the case. Like it's not objective advice that we're giving you. It's just our own experience so far.
Yeah, take what works for you and ignore what doesn't, or ignore what you perhaps wouldn't want to do. Like you said, a lot of aggressive tactics. I'll probably be using a lot of them, but there are some of them that I'll be like, this is not my personality, or this is not something I would do, which is completely fine. But
just be true to yourself.
Exactly. And I feel like now is a perfect time to wrap up. I feel like we've thrown out a lot of good information. I've learned a lot just from asking you all these questions. And they're all things that I'm going to be like taking into account when I apply for my next job. And I hope we've helped as many of you as we can. What do you think, Hassan?
Yeah, I think this is a good point for us to wrap up. We are very curious to hear your feedback. So if you've listened to this podcast, if you've seen any value in what we've said, or if you want to critique what we've said, we're more than happy to hear about it. Again, we want to learn from you guys. We want to share our experiences in any way we've experienced it. So
do you have a message to say, though, to all the managers that we talked about in this podcast? I just want to shout out Rob and Harp, because those are the ones that I talked about in this episode. And if I was a bit mean about Harp being such an asshole to me in our interview, he knows I'm joking, but that's the way he is anyways.
I'll shout out Matt, my current manager. He's an absolute gem. I think he's made the interview process when I was interviewing at my current organization very, very easy. I'm not going to name drop the folks at the organization that made a horrible experience during the case study and what followed and the reasoning why they rejected me. It was a very good learning lesson. I learned a lot, so can't fold that, but it wasn't the best experience from a applicant's perspective. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah, thank you guys.